Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Listen, I'm going to be doing a big correction in the next hour because that's when I did the original story. And I'm so happy to be wrong. So happy to be wrong about McKinney ISD. I had told you, just a quick summary before we get into my first topic here. I had told you that there was a viral video going around of McKinney ISD board of trustees or school board or something like that, and it looked like that they were turning down a motion to keep the gender separated in bathrooms and locker rooms and sports teams. And look, it was a mistake. I hope this was just a big misunderstanding, because the Observer had reported it and some other outlets had already picked it up and run with the same misconception. So I wasn't the origin of the misinformation, but I certainly passed it along, because I think all of us got a letter, an email from someone who's on the McKinney Board of Trustees, and it said, you guys are getting it wrong, that our rules still separate the genders by biology. And the whole thing is just a misconception, because the guy was throwing up a rule that didn't need to be dealt with anyway. And so we all just ignored it because that was already the standing rule and we didn't want to break the agenda. Well, more on that coming up in the second hour. But first, our top story. We have a big interview today with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Now, it's not, usually a big deal if a presidential candidate speaks to the media, because it's been your experience your entire life that if you're running for president, you want to be in front of the media as much as possible. That's what's been so weird about this one. So, to pretend to explain herself, let's bring in the blonde Kamala back on the James Show. So, blonde Kamala, why did you feel the need to bring Tim Walz to your first interview?
Well, here's the thing, James. Okay, when I don't know the answer to a question, I'm going to laugh, right? And then Tim is going to interrupt, and he's going to tell a folksy story about, whatever. And in the meantime, okay, my assistant is going to tell me the answer, right?
So another question we have is, why are you taping it in advance instead of doing it live? Because, you open up the speculation that you're doing this with the specific intent of being able to edit it.
Well, editing is a funny thing, isn't it? It's when you take a piece of work, a product, a thing, and you change it to essentially make yourself look good, right? And that's what we need to do. So that's what we will be doing, of course.
That is the clearest answer you have ever given on this show. That was actually...
Well, they told me, my people, they told me I have to be a little more concise, and, but I'm not going to stop laughing because I love to laugh.
Well, that's progress. I think that's the closest you've come to actually answering a question on the show. The other question is, are you getting the questions in advance? I have heard speculation that you are, but not confirmation.
Well, that is a really great question. And I'm so glad that you asked that, because it's a question that people want to know the answer to. And, when people ask questions, they expect answers. And that is what we intend to do as we answer the questions.
Were you ever the border czar?
Well, I have been to the border, right? And it is a place that serves nachos and queso and lots of other really, really good food that I enjoy. So I don't know why people keep asking about being the border czar. It's just, it's a silly question.
Well,
okay?
It's a legit question, because you were made the border czar, and then someone asked if you went to the border, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go to the border. And then you went to the Canadian border. And then someone said, no, not that one, the one south. And so then you went to the border of Mexico and Guatemala. And then we're like, no, the Mexican border that touches us, genius. And so you went to El Paso, but you didn't go to the border. So I don't think you physically have been to our border with Mexico yet.
Well, here's the thing, okay? The places that I have been, the borders that I have been to, all have fantastic margaritas.
Are you on margaritas right now?
Margaritas are good. Let me tell you, they are good.
Did you have margaritas at lunch?
I'm not telling.
All right, that's the best answer so far. Elsa Kurt, can you stick with me through the break here? I want to ask you some questions about what you got going on outside of being my favorite Kamala Harris impersonator. Can you stick with me?
I can.
All right. The much less annoying persona, Elsa Kurt, will be joining us after this break, and we'll ask her and actually get some answers this time about what's coming up with this Kamala Harris, Tim Walz interview with CNN. Look, it's not so cut and dry. There's a lot of weird stuff spinning around this, and we'll tell you about it in about 5 minutes on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Now, we continue with the woman behind Blonde Kamala. Her name's Elsa Kurt. And one of the most frustrating parts about just having to deal with the media is the doublespeak, how they can just for years say that Kamala Harris is the border czar, and now they try and pretend like in the last month or so, just memory hole that whole thing, like that never happened. Like, Trump, one of his first ads, Elsa, was a 30-second ad about Kamala being the border czar. Would he just make that up? Is this just we're all just having the same delusion that we imagine that she was border czar for the last 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the icing on the cake, isn't it? It's just one in a long series of deceptions, and we're supposed to just sit there and say, oh, yeah, no, we didn't see those videos. We didn't hear Biden call you or put you in charge of the border. None of these things happened, even though we saw it. And it's just, it's surreal, isn't it, to watch how many of these things, and that she's just taking credit for everything now. Now, everything is her idea. It's her idea to build the wall. It's her idea to do no tax on tips. It's, she's just, looking over her paper. It's like, the kid in high school looking over and cheating off of his or her neighbor's test. It's just wild to me that they're doing it and pretending like nothing's happening.
Well, it's super frustrating because CNN and MSNBC, and I'm going to play a montage here, they can say things that are just completely not true. They're obviously lying for political purposes. All of America, who's been paying 1 cent of attention to politics, knows that she was the border czar. And now they can come out and tell you with a straight face, oh, they're lying. This is just another racist attacker. This is Republicans lying about her being border czar. And like, I look out the window at my Democrat friends or anyone who still believes the media and like, how much evidence do you need that these people are dishonest? So Media Research Center did the best montage. They just went from a soundbite after Kamala dropped out to a soundbite before Kamala dropped out to a soundbite after Kamala dropped out to a soundbite before Kamala dropped out. Listen to this beautiful 1.5-minute montage.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, I had to hit the right button over here.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. She was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
Dude, anyone who is caught in this lie should not be allowed on TV. They are dishonest hacks.
Right. Yeah, and they get away with it. There is no accountability. There's no repercussions for them. They just do it. And, the real problem here is that they know they can do it. They know they can get away with it because their audience just sits there, sucking it up with a straw and nodding their heads in perfect lockstep with them. They know that their core audience is not going to do their own research. They're not going to question anything. And they know it because it's been proven over and over again. And I can prove it just with one look in my comments section with, people who are just diehard Kamala Harris fans. And let's be real, they're not Kamala Harris fans. They're Trump haters. That's what they are.
Definitely.
And you can't get through to them. It's exhausting and frustrating, and really, like you said, it's infuriating, really, because this is why we're where we're at in this country right now, because of these people being so willingly blind, and of course, the accountability factor, and then what's the answer to that? Of course, you don't want more government involvement in that, because we already see how that happened. Mark Zuckerberg is a perfect example of that right now with everything he's saying. So it's just a lot of wow factor.
Yeah. So let's talk about solutions, Elsa. People ask me all the time, well, what do we do about this? I don't know. What do we do about it?
Yeah, again, I say as much as we want some controls put in place that people have to be held accountable for the things that they say, we also don't want big government involved in that. So the accountability, I guess, comes in with us and kind of doing exactly what we're doing, which is calling it out repeatedly and not backing down from that and not subscribing to it, essentially, and trying to get more people to see that. I think when you see examples like it's different but the same. When you see examples of RFK Jr.'s wife, actress Cheryl Hines, how the left turned on her aggressively, her own peers, or of course their own family, and all of that. And what we need to do on the flip side of that is to basically welcome them with open arms and just, I hate to use the word recruit, but we need to bring more people over to this side who are on the fence. Again, you can't touch the people who are, just diehards and unreachable, but there is a good percentage of people who are paying attention now, and those are the ones that you work on. And
don't be ashamed to use that word recruit, because it's going to take some sort of version of that, proselytizing or whatever you call it. But there are things we can do because we have a platform. But for the people that are asking, or the people that are listening right now, you don't have a whole lot of responsibility. You don't have a platform. If you're an accountant, go to work and do some business's taxes. If you're a teacher, go teach a class. But you do have people in your immediate sphere that you could kind of nudge them along. And if you could just convert one or two people and speed up that process, when you're young, you're liberal, but when you get older, you get conservative. If we could just kind of speed that process along, that's really like the people listening, you're not accountable for much. There's not a whole lot you can do. So you really shouldn't fret about it too much. Just do what you can in your little sphere, and I'll be the guy that takes the heat and on the microphone here, and Blonde Kamala will make fun of him.
Yes, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I'll take heat. I've discovered very quickly with all of this that I have no problem being the quote unquote bad guy. Like, try and hurt my feelings. You can't. You just simply can't. So bring it on, and I would just simply encourage people that are listening who don't have platforms, like you said, that have platforms like we do, who are trying to make change in their own world, in their own portion of the world. It is as simple as being informed, having facts and knowing them, and to not be afraid to speak up and to question them. And a lot of us are not combative, especially when it comes to this type of stuff, because we don't feel knowledgeable. But the best way to go about that, honestly, if you're questioning it, is to simply ask them questions, lead them to the answer. Ask them what Kamala Harris has accomplished. Why are you so impressed with her? And you bring them to the truth. You bring them to reality by getting them to see it themselves, or feeling that they saw it themselves.
What's on the latest episode of the Elsa Kurt show?
Oh, my goodness. Same type of stuff, my friend. We are covering all of the latest topics and goings on in the world. We have a show on tonight at 9 p.m., and we're back from a hiatus, actually. We were off the air for 2 weeks, so it's going to be really good to be back. And, just covering all the topics and trying to laugh through it with everybody.
Wait, are you going to be on the same time as the Kamala Harris interview?
Yes, ironically, yes. So I'm hoping people will switch maybe back and forth, get a little comedic relief or a little just some kind of relief from that.
Okay, look,
go
to like cspan.com or maybe CNN.com, open a live stream and just pop it up in another window in your, what do you use, StreamYard, Restream, and do like a live commentary as Blonde Kamala.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. Yes.
All right. Find her. She's all over the place. Elsa Kurt is her real name. And you can also search for Blonde Kamala. Thanks for being on the show again.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Coming up next, retired NYPD Lieutenant Commander Joe Cardinale. He's going to be talking about what's going on with the immigration crime wave. And I want to ask him a few questions about the new info from the Trump shooting in Pennsylvania. That's coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.